Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Football Diehards show. I am Armando. With me, as always, is Bobby Gomes. How's it going, my man?
Going well. Getting ready for Week 14.
Yeah, man, it's lots of information to digest this week. I don't think I've ever seen so much value, on a Sunday as we're seeing now. Especially now with this Odell Beckham news that he's not going to be playing. Sterling Shepard's very cheap. We saw his production with Odell Beckham off the field last season. I think Evan Ingram also becomes very interesting. He's healthy. He was dealing with a hamstring injury that kept him off the field for a couple games, but it appears he's going to be giving it a go. So that's going to be an interesting situation. And when we get to that game, we'll definitely break it down. And then you also have Jalen Samuels here, who is expected to see the bulk of the work. From my understanding, I see that he, based on what Ian Rappaport reported this morning, he is expected to get the bulk of the carries for the Steelers. You also have Jeff Wilson, who's going to get the start. So tons of information out there to really pick apart here and make decisions, because you can't play all of these guys. Making it a very interesting slate, because decisions need to be made this weekend. So give me your thoughts on the overall slate before we begin the game-by-game breakdown here.
Yeah, a lot of value. You're going to have to decide if you want to go low running back, high running back, low receiver, and basically just try to figure out everyone's roster construction is going to be spread out, especially with just there not being any buys and this kind of being a big slate. So it's kind of an interesting slate for tournaments. Definitely a slate I think you want to attack in terms of just playing tournaments. Yeah, that's pretty much my feel on the slate as of right now.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you, because typically, we talk about picking and choosing your slates wisely, and then maybe there's some games that are much more suited. That are much more suited for cash games. Some that are much more suited for tournaments. And I think this is a very good tournament slate because, like you mentioned, the roster construction is going to be spread out. Ultimately, I think most people are going to go ahead and take the value at running back and pay up for the receiver position. I think I want to do the opposite this week. I think I want to stack up on some of these high-priced running backs that are in good spots because I do like the value here at the receiver position. I think there's plenty of receivers under 5K or even under 6K that in good spots and have nice floors as well as ceilings here. So interesting to see how at the end of the show where we both stand as far as how we're going to construct our rosters here. As far as injuries, it looks like T.Y. Hilton, who was dealing with shoulder injury, is going to give it a go. The same thing up with Cam Newton. He was dealing with a shoulder injury. It doesn't look like it's going to keep him off the field this week. Joe Flacco will play, but he's expected to be the backup quarterback this week. So that to me is interesting. And then Melvin Gordon, we already know he's out. That also brings up some value. I think Justin Jackson's an interesting tournament play at a very cheap price here. So ready to jump into this, game by game break up here. The first game is one that not a ton of interest. It's the Jets in Buffalo taking on the Bills. 37 over under here. It's actually gone down 1.5 since it opened. And neither team have implied team totals of over 20.75 points. The Bills are 4.5 point favorites here. It's interesting to see this line moving down because 72% of the bets are on the over here. So definitely sharp money on the under. I tend to agree. I don't think there's much in this game that you can, talk me into here. But I do want to point out Zay Jones to me is very interesting because the volume has been there consistently over the last, 4 weeks, or actually 5-6 weeks it is, for the exception of the Jacksonville game where he was only targeted one time. Problem is that he doesn't catch the ball a ton. Like even if he gets, 9 targets like you saw last week against Miami, he caught 4 of those. Yeah, he scored twice, but he only caught 4 of his 9 passes. The catch percentage there is not that great, and I don't think the game in Meyer. But once again, talking about value at the position, Zay Jones to me at 4,200, it is a good value here. I'm not going to be rostering, but I didn't want to point him out because the volume is there, and I think he's very similar to Cortland Sutton, where they're going to see the ball a ton. It's just a matter of being efficient here. So Give me your thoughts on this game. Give me your thoughts if you're going to go with anyone here, or if this is a game you're pretty much staying away from.
Yeah, I'm pretty much staying away from it. I think the Jets defense is pretty interesting, especially with a lot of people chasing Josh Allen and Zay Jones. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, Zay Jones has seen a lot of volume, but do you really want to roster a guy in a game where the total's gone down? It's the Jets-Bills. I know Josh Allen has a rushing prop of 60 or something like that, so that bodes well for him at his price tag. But still, I don't really want to play any of these guys. Only thing that would be in play would be Jets D. I think they're pretty good in terms of point per dollar on DraftKings. That's all I pretty much have.
Yeah, I'm not going to be playing Zay Jones either. I just really wanted to point him out because I know that there's a lot of cheap receivers this week that people are targeting, and if you kind of want to pivot off of someone who's going to see targets, maybe consider him. I'm not playing a ton of volume. I'm actually just entering a couple lineups and playing higher dollar stuff this week, and he's not in any of my builds at this time. So I think the Bills defense is also intriguing this week. They are a little pricier than I would like to pay for a defense at 3,200, but think this is a pretty good spot. And I like to call on the Jets defense. This Bill offense is not really all that imposing. So situation here where I'm staying away from for the most part this week. Next game, the Giants heading over to Washington to take on the Redskins. 40.5 over under here. 52% of the bets are on the under. It's shifted down half a point. The Giants are 3-point favorites on the road. They have an implied team total of 21.75 points, 18.75 implied team total for the Redskins here. No Odell Beckham for New York. Bobby, we talked a little bit about this, at the start of the show. So just go ahead, give me your thoughts on this game and how the absence of Odell Beckham will impact the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I think Saquon definitely gets a bump in terms of his usage, and I think Sterling Shepard's going to see a significant bump. We've seen that in games when Beckham hasn't been in play, or they've been missing a guy like Evan Ingram. Shepard seems to be the guy that Eli kind of looks to. So I like Shepard at his price tag, especially off a pivot off guys like Sutton. I think Shepard's a fringe cash game play. Saquon's definitely in play for both cash and tournaments, depending on how you feel. In terms of rostering him, or basically how you feel between him, McCaffrey, and Zeke or Kamara, wherever you want to go there. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Saquon and Shep.
No interest in Evan Ingram at 3,700. Now that there's going to be some extra targets to be, tossed around here in this offense.
No, yeah, definitely. With you're going to have Josh Norman on taking away one receiver, so it should open up stuff for Ingram. Yeah, that's a sharp call. I like that call. For me right now, I hadn't really got to Ingram. There's a couple other tight ends, but I like the play.
I just feel like there's so much value that you could technically pay for the position, but I think that's going to be the consensus roster construction here this week. So just trying to get a little different in tournaments for sure here. But I agree. I think Saquon Barkley, to me, was someone that I was considering whether I wanted to roster or not. But now with this news, I think he pretty much becomes a lock for me, and in pretty much all formats, cash games, tournaments. The Redskins have been a little bit more vulnerable against running backs, in recent weeks than maybe most people think. At least 128 rushing yards in 4 of their last 5 games here, allowing 3 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns to running backs throughout that stretch. So been much more, susceptible to the run here in recent weeks than they were earlier in the year. Do think that, I was already considering Barkley, but now he's going to be more popular, which I kind of, dislike because I thought he was going to be a very strong tournament play, even with Beckham there. But great matchup for him, I think. Great play in all formats. Man, I'm having trouble how I want to treat this Sterling Shepard situation. I agree with you. I think in cash, you plug him in, don't overthink it. But would you be comfortable fading him in tournaments?
See, that's the thing. I don't know if he's exactly – we have so much value in that, like, pricing tier. Like, I don't know if he's definitely a cash game lock, but I get what you're saying. Like, I have him in my cash game right now, but I'm, like, not 100%. I just think that there's so much value, whether it's him, Curtis Samuel. You have both Humphreys and Godwin, although there's weather in Tampa Bay that we kind of have to look out for. They have the positive game script, those two. A lot of people are going to be chasing that. I like Shepard a ton. I think he's probably the closest thing to a cash game lock, but at that price point. But I think the other options are also pretty close. So I don't know if he's like exactly the one. I'm trying to figure that out as like we're going along right now. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Like, because my concern with him this week is like, do I want to fade him in tournaments or not? I kind of feel like I should fade him in tournaments because I think he's going to see a pretty significant spike in ownership. And like you said, like there's still other guys, and we'll talk about some of these guys, but there's still other guys that also should see targets in pretty decent spots, and are still in that price range. So I don't feel the need that I should be playing Shepard in tournaments. So I kind of just wanted to get your perspective from it to see if it's
definitely
if it's a
good
tournaments.
He's definitely fadeable.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. And that's what I thought for sure. So from Bobby, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing on something from this offense, but I have nothing from Washington.
Yeah, me neither. That's one of the issues with this game is I can't really run it back with anything. So that's what kind of makes me question like my Saquon. Like I like Saquon a lot, but I like to run it back. So there's nothing really to run it back in this game. This game could just be a flat game. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, and that's why I don't feel the need to go anything else besides Barkley, because even if it's a flat game, I do think Barkley will get his 20-plus touches easy here. So I think he has a nice floor and built-in upside already. So at that point, I don't mind, fading the rest of the game, but plugging in Barkley. Any final thoughts here before we move on?
No, we can get on to the next one.
The Saints headed to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucks. This game has a 55 over/under here. It's actually gone down 3 points since it opened. 52% of the bets are on the over, so that's just telling me that there's some sharp money here on the under. The Saints 32.25 implied team total. The Bucks 22.25 implied team total. Saints 10-point favorites on the road. As you alluded to earlier, there is expected to be some rain here. I live in Florida. I am far, far south from Tampa, but we are all down here expected some rain this weekend because there are some cold fronts coming. So, I usually don't let weather dictate unless it's like significant weather. I usually don't let weather dictate my decisions here, and I'm not going to let it dictate my decisions for this game. But it does have to be considered here. This was one of those games that I still think it's going to be one of those games where it generates a ton of ownership, a ton of interest. Bless you, man. But I think people might steer away because of that rain, and I think that might be a mistake. Give me your thoughts here, because I still think that guys like Godwin, Humphreys, at their prices, man, they're just too cheap for the situation, too cheap for the game environment. And two, you consider the Bucks having to pass because they don't have a run game, and they're going to be throwing the ball here and chasing points. So give me your thoughts on this offense and this game in general.
Yeah, Godwin, Humphreys, they're great prices, great plays. I definitely lean Humphreys. Last week I was more on Godwin. It turned out to be the right play, but Humphreys has P.J. Williams. We talked about it on Thursday. He's in the slot. He'd be the guy I kind of lean to in this offense in terms of cash. On the Saints side, I think the rain has a big impact on this slate in terms of we've seen Drew Brees' home road splits. We know the Saints have been pretty run heavy. A lot of people are going to gravitate to Kamara. A lot of the Bills, people are going low running back and pretty much two high dollar running backs in cash games or something like that, or just Samuel Wilson and then one of the high dollar guys. But I think a guy like Ingram in tournaments kind of gets lost in the shuffle here, especially on the road. I think Kamara is going to be pretty. Do we have an ownership clip on Kamara? Like, I think out of the 4 running backs, like he's probably going to be the lowest owned. And I think that this weather kind of like would heed their like the game script kind of working out for guys like that, like Kamara, Ingram. So I don't mind like in tournaments running out there both Kamara and Ingram. I know it's a negative correlation to roster 2 running backs on the same team, and basically with this spread, like getting all the running back value in this game on the Saints side, or just if you want to pick between Ingram and Kamara, they're both going to be at pretty low clips in terms of ownership. They're going to have favorable weather, favorable game script. They've been pretty run heavy of late. They're going back to the style that they kind of played last year. I like both these guys in this game versus a defense that's been pretty atrocious all season long.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I knew you were asking about the ownership here. So I got kind of mixed reviews for ownership. 1 week season has them at 18%, and then Fantasy Lab has them between 9 and 12%. So this is Alvin Kamara. I'm expecting somewhere in the middle of these two. I'm expecting about 15% ownership here for Kamara this week. I really like the Ingram call because I feel like he's someone that has the tournament or state breaking upside in tournaments because he can have 2 touchdowns easily in this spot. And if the rain is going to be an issue here, I do think they're going to pretty much emphasize the run a little bit more this week. We've seen them do it before, so it wouldn't be surprising. We see them take that approach on the road as well, like you alluded to. And Ingram can catch passes out of the backfield, so it's not like if it's not like he can't. So those short passes and stuff like that, he can come out with some of those, and we've seen him find the end zone through the air and on the ground. So I like him. I think that price is cheap. This is definitely a good matchup for him. Regarding Kamara, man, I was a little bit more bullish on him earlier in the week than I am now. It's very tough to come off of like McCaffrey, Elliott, or Barkley to Kamara. It's just very difficult because Mark Ingram is now a factor. He wasn't a factor earlier in the year, and I think that that ceiling that we saw from Kamara, while he still has it, I just don't think we're going to see it as often as we did earlier in the year, which really just puts him behind those 3 guys that I just mentioned there this week for me. But still a good play, still a good matchup for him, and still a good game environment for sure, without a doubt. So, and anything on the passing, like, I like Drew Brees. We talked about it on Thursday that he makes for like an interesting tournament play, but I'm not going there this week. This is a game where I wouldn't want to stack the quarterbacks with their receivers, but I do want exposure to this game as far as like, receivers or running backs from, the Saints or just receivers from the Bucks. I'm not interested in Cameron Bate. I know I've heard some talk about him, but Saints are stout against a tight end position, man. So I just don't think it's necessary to go there this week at all. And they're stout against the run. So, obviously Barber's not going to be an option for me either. But yeah, I'm not really stacking any of these quarterbacks here. Are you going to be, playing any of these guys as far as Breeze or Winston's concerned? Or are you just kind of doing the same thing I'm doing where you're picking a couple players from each side and rostering them?
Yeah, I'm probably not playing either Breeze or Winston. I just don't really see the upside with either. Like I can see Winston obviously having a good game, but this is one of those spots when Winston kind of sees a lot of ownership and then he flops. So I'm not going to be rostering Winston in these conditions, this situation.
Yeah, this really does, and it does appear to be one of those letdown spots from Winston where he just
Saints D.
3 or 4. Yeah, I'm okay with that. They've been playing really well. I mean, they've been playing really, really well as of late. They're still affordable.
Better be okay with it.
Huh? You'll be okay with it?
No, I said better be okay. I was just messing around.
Yeah. No. This week I definitely am okay with it, man. All right, on to this next game. You got your Patriots visiting my Miami Dolphins here. I think this is obviously a straightforward situation where the Patriots are expected to come into Miami outright win this game. They are 9.5-point favorites. They have a 29 implied team total. Dolphins have a 19.5 implied team total. This over-under here is 48.5. Give me your thoughts on this game. I really think that this is a situation where you want to attack Miami through the ground. And the Patriots have plenty of options in their backfield to do so. The Dolphins really do struggle here against the run. Give me your thoughts on that, and give me your thoughts on this game as a whole.
I think I like this game. I hate this game. Like, I think the Pats defense is getting better. But like, obviously they've had their struggles in Miami. Guys like Kenny Stills, Tannehill. I know you probably like Kenyon Drake if you said Miami run game. I had Kenyon Drake when he was up here. A lot of exposure to him in New England. He didn't do too well. So I don't know. I'm kind of pretty much staying away from this game. For the New England side, like, I think Sony Michel is pretty interesting. Him or James White, I'd probably lean Sony Michel. But my issue with both of those guys is Rex Burkhead's back, and he could eat into their opportunity. So that kind of scares me. Gronk's extremely cheap. I don't really mind it if people want to go there. That price is just like ridiculous. I just don't know how much they're going to utilize him. They could like just kind of go easy on him because this is a game that they should win. Although, like I said, they've had a lot of issues in Miami in the past. This game, like on a different slate, like if this game was earlier in the year and there were and we had to deal with buys and all other situations, like I'd probably be looking at this team, the Miami side a little bit more, but I'm just not there right now.
Yeah, and
for tournaments,
and I'm sorry. Yeah, and I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. No, what I was saying was kind of on the same page as you. Like, attack the Dolphins with the Patriots running backs here. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I misheard you.
No, that's cool. No, I agree. I think Sony Michel is in an interesting spot. I kind of have a lot of interest in him, in tournaments because I don't think he's going to get any ownership because he's at that odd price range where either most running backs, I think, in this price range are going to get lost in the shuffle this weekend. So I really think he's interesting. Go ahead.
I think the running backs in this price range are like, if you pick the right one here as a fade off the high end guy, you're in a really good spot. That's why I talked about Ingram, Sony Michel. Like, I just think that these guys are, if you get the right one, you're in a good spot.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at because I want to have like exposure to maybe some of these running backs in this price range. And I just think that Michel makes so much sense, man. The Dolphins are just terrible against the run. And the game script here should favor the run game for the Patriots. So not a game I have a ton of exposure to, really, to be honest with you. But I do think that he's interesting at that price tag. And we did see him, get, I think it was 17 carries last week, if I'm not mistaken. 17 carries last week. He didn't do much of them, but the carries are still there. And it was against a tough Vikings run defense here. On Thursday, I mentioned like Tannehill as a, flyer if you're running a bunch of lineups or in tournaments like the Millionaire Maker, just because they're going to be chasing points. And, like you mentioned, the Patriots they typically play better defense at this point in the season than they do at the start of the season. So don't go by the overall numbers for them this year, but I still think Tannehill is going to have to throw, and he's only 4,800. So in deep, like those big, large fields, I wouldn't hate the idea of just, plugging him and Stills and run it back with someone like Sony Michel here, Like, to me, that's a pretty good way to do it. But wouldn't be doing it in single entry or smaller field tournaments for sure. On to this next game here, Bobby. The Chiefs are hosting the Ravens. This is one of those, interesting games because it has a high total, 50, but it's gone down by 3 points since it opened. The Chiefs went from an implied team total of 30.25 points to 27.75 points here. Ravens have a 21.75 implied team total. Chiefs 6-point favorites here. Flacco is active, but it looks like he's going to be the backup to Jackson here today. I really don't know how to approach this game, Bobby, because I think Kelsey is pretty much the only thing I like here, but that could be a mistake. So kind of wanted to get your 2 cents on this game and your thoughts here. So go ahead, take the floor, bud.
Yeah, I really like Tyreek. If you're just watching the box score last week, Tyreek almost hit. It only takes one play for him to make that value. He's going to be at really low ownership, around like 7%. They don't. Baltimore is going to kind of stuff the run, funnel the passing game. I'm not like I was on Kelsey a ton last week. It worked out. Like I pretty much didn't have as I didn't. I was kind of below the field on Tyreek this week. I'm probably going to be over the field on Tyreek and like with or below the field on Kelsey. I just really like Tyreek Hill in tournaments. Like Kelsey's going to be a cash play for a lot of people. I really like Tyreek though.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect analysis there, because I do think Kelsey's going to be very popular this week, and I mean I'm fine with playing him in either format, to be honest with you, but I'm leaning more on just sticking to him in cash games this week, because the way I'm rostering, the way I'm building my lineups in tournaments is a little bit different than I am in cash. And this week, I think a lot of value is still going to be played at the running back position in tournaments, and I'm kind of going to go away from that. So it's not allowing me to fit in Kelsey, but I do think he's a phenomenal play in all formats really this week. And that's how you want to attack the Ravens anyways. They're good, they're a good defensive team. They're good against the run. They're good at covering outside receivers, but they do struggle against tight ends. So Kelsey's definitely in a good spot. And I think Mahomes is an interesting GPP quarterback, because no one's going to be on him. And we by now everyone knows his upside. I don't think it's a secret. But it's just kind of tough to pay up for him this week in tournaments. You definitely can do so, but I'm prioritizing running backs. And you will hear me say this throughout the show, man. But that's kind of the approach I'm taking this week. So it makes it a little bit difficult to roster him. On the other side, it's a stay away situation for me, because I have a feeling that they're going to utilize Flacco at some point in this game. So it would limit Jackson's upside. And the Chiefs have just been playing a little bit better defense, especially at home. Tougher environment here for the Ravens. So I actually have interest in the Chiefs defense this weekend, because they're 2,300, and it allows you to do so much here. And, this is a Ravens offense that really doesn't, have anything to be too concerned about. Their run game is not that great. Their pass catchers, yeah, they have Crabtree or whatnot, but it's not like it's an elite unit by any means. So I like the Chiefs here to get to the quarterback, create some, sacks and potentially some turnovers. So at 2,300, go ahead, sign me up for them, because I do like them a bit here. They're probably going to be the defense I'm rolling in all my tournament lineups this weekend.
Yeah, I like them in cash as well. I think they're in a real good spot in cash. Rookie quarterback going in Arrowhead always spells trouble. Yeah, they obviously aren't a great defense, but at that price point, like they should be able to make value here. I like the Chiefs. I haven't decided that they're going to be my cash game defense. It's between them and looking at the Jets, looking at the Packers, looking at the Cowboys. But yeah, they're one of the teams that I'm contemplating using at this moment.
Yeah. Anything else here before we move on to the next game, man?
Yeah, I like the Mahomes call. I think Mahomes is sharp. Like, we don't have to get into why. Just I think a lot of people are going to overlook him. And then Spencer Ware, 5,200, 60% ownership last week, busted. A lot of people are going to go there. Matchup's terrible. But if you're looking for a fade in tournaments off these two running backs, it may be pretty chalky. Like, he's going to be at low ownership. I'm not going to do it, but I understand why people are saying, like, the game theory aspect, it makes sense. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And Kelvin Benjamin's back for Kansas City as well, if you want to go there as a low punt play. But he's only at 3,400 if you're playing the Millionaire Maker, these deep GBPs. Him, guys like Conley, like, they're in good positions. Like, Watkins is out. Like, Conley's going to see a lot of snaps. I'm not saying Benjamin's a good play by any means, but just in terms of, like, throwing him in the Millionaire Maker, if he goes off for two touchdowns, like, he has Mahomes. Like, it's not Josh Allen. Like, it's a different situation. Like, he's obviously, like, should be a tight end. You know what I mean? But I just think that he's had upside in the past. He's been good in the league, and now you're giving him the best quarterback he's played with. He's Mahomes is 10 times better than Cam Newton, and he's like in comparison to a guy like Josh Allen, it's not even close. So Benjamin at that price tag, if you're just throwing in like a millionaire lineup, go ahead. He's better than a lot of the low value guy options you're going to see, I would say. Still want to see him get some snaps, but.
Yeah. And, I agree with that take a ton, actually. I think Ware is interesting. I'm not going to do it, but I think it's interesting because, like you mentioned, like he let everyone down last week for sure, but he's still going to see the bulk of the carries here in this backfield. He really is. So it's not like the volume is going anywhere. He just didn't do anything with it last week, but he's going to get the volume again this week. I don't love the matchup because, like I alluded to it, when we started breaking down this game, this is a tough Ravens run defense. So, but that said, in the red zone, it's going to be Ware getting the target. I mean, the carries and stuff like that. So he will have some touchdown equity in this matchup because I do think they'll be in the red zone at some point and maybe at multiple points in this game. So before we move on and jump into the next game, we got some questions. So I don't know if you got into some of these or not yet. So let's go ahead and go over these. Yeah. So Wentz or Mayfield. I'm assuming this is for DFS, and if that's the case, I'm gonna go
Baker.
Mayfield. Yes. I actually like him a lot this week. Samuel's worth it. Not to me. I respect, and I'm assuming this is Curtis Samuel. Actually, it could be now. It could be multiple players.
Yeah.
All right. So Jaden Samuels. We'll break that game down when we get there. I'm gonna fade him. I'm gonna fade him. I'll tell you now. I'm gonna fade him. I'm not comfortable doing so, but I'm gonna fade him this week in tournaments, not in cash, in tournaments for sure. Brady, or you could go ahead and say Samuels. I'm sorry. I'm assuming it's Jalen Samuels.
I think Samuels is more of a tournament play. I'm fading him in cash. So this is why a lot of people are going to have their own takes on cash this week. That you're not going to see a lot of the same cash game lineups on DraftKings. So.
All right. Brady or Mayfield in GPPs? Baker Mayfield for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Baker.
Eckler or Ingram in standard leagues? Give me Ingram.
Dude,
it's
I
close,
like
but
both.
give me Ingram. I like them both a lot, but it's standard. So, like, you see, like, that really reduces. When it's a standard league, there's no PPR. It reduces, in my opinion, Eckler's upside.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, go Ingram.
But I do love them both, like you stated. I think they're both very strong plays. Matt Ryan or Allen, I'm assuming. It says Ryan or Allen, so I'm assuming it's Matt Ryan and I would assume Josh Allen. I'd go Matt Ryan here.
Yeah, Matt Ryan or Josh Allen.
I'm assuming that those would be.
I think you got to go Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
We both have the same sentiment towards Ryan on the road.
Yes, correct. Although he is someone I have been contemplating on rostering this week.
No, don't do it. Do not do it.
No, I'm not.
Don't do it.
I contemplated, but I'm not. We're going to get to the guy I'm rostering in the next game, actually. Gus Edwards or Josh Adams? Give me Gus Edwards. It's just I don't like either of these guys this weekend.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd go Edwards.
All right, Sutton or Ware in PPR? I'm gonna go Ware.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Ware too. I think Sutton's gonna bust his chalk today. I don't know why. I think Ware's a better play. I don't like Sutton this week.
Me either. I have had a change of heart. I liked him a little bit more earlier in the week. I've had a change of heart, and we'll get there. What about the Giants defense? They're on the road. I think there are other options that you can go with this week that are in better situations, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Eckler or
no, they're
JJ?
not on the road. They're not on the road. They're at home.
The Giants?
I think so.
No, they're at Washington.
Oh, they're at Washington. I'm sorry. I thought the first game was at Washington for some reason.
No, I had to go look. Trust me. I had to go look.
I know. I was confused. I thought I was. See, I read that wrong earlier. I don't know. I thought for some reason they played at the first game in Washington.
Eckler or JJ? I'm assuming that's Justin Jackson. I'm assuming Eckler for me. I do like, and we'll get to that game, but I do like Jackson as a pivot off some of these other guys in tournaments this weekend. But Eckler is a safer play.
Eckler is the safer play.
Yeah. Right. This is directed to you. Well, we already answered that. It was Hey Bobby, Matt Ryan, or Allen in standard. We both said Ryan. Mayfield or Lamar Jackson. Man, we're getting a lot of Baker questions. Listen, guys, I'm very high on Baker Mayfield, and there's very few guys that I'd be starting ahead of him. I would start Mayfield
like Baker
over
too,
Lamar
guys.
Jackson. I would start Mayfield over Lamar Jackson, and to me, that's pretty easy. I assume you had the same take, so I'm not even going to ask you there because you just said you like Mayfield. Goff or Josh Allen? Goff for me.
Goff, yeah. Goff. Definitely Goff.
All right, we answered the Eckler or Ingram. I think we're almost there. All right, PPR, Tyler Boyd, Jeffrey, or Zay Jones?
Boyd. Come on,
I guess
Green,
I don't like it. Yeah, Boyd, I don't like it because it is a tough matchup.
Boyd.
All right, guys, Boyd. Lex, 2 of 3. Lockett, Gus Edwards, or Humphreys in PPR. Sit Gus Edwards in that bunch.
Who was it?
Lockett, Humphreys, or Edwards in PPR.
Yeah, you're sitting Gus.
Yep. Ingram or Hooper, Zay Jones or Antonio Callaway. So I'll take Ingram and Callaway.
I love Ingram and Callaway. I think Callaway's, if you're stacking Baker with someone this week, it's Callaway.
Absolutely. Need 2 in PPR. Galladay.
Dude, Callaway's going to smash.
Yeah, I love Callaway this week. Need 2 in PPR. Galladay, Allen Robinson, or Mac. I'm sitting Mac out of that group.
Yeah, I'm sitting Mac.
All right, guys. Doug Martin going to play late game. Only other running back I have is Ty Montgomery, half-point PPR. Stick with Ty Montgomery. They're going to be chasing points.
Stick with time on, dude.
Yeah. So we got that. Should I play Isaiah Crowell or Jeff Wilson? Jeff Wilson. For me.
Jeff Wilson.
All right, guys. Here we got some information provided to us by Amo. Thank you, Amo. And that's Joe Flacco, inactive. Sammy Watkins, inactive. Benjamin, inactive. Harris is active. Yeah, that's information there. Hilton is active. Kiki Kute, inactive. Deontay Foreman, inactive. Josh Doxton is active. Okay, Big Ben on the road or Rodgers? I like Rodgers. I mean, I think they're both really strong plays this week, but I'll go with the guy at home and I'll go with Rodgers.
Yeah, I love Rodgers, so Rodgers.
Need 2 of 4, 1 point PPR. Tyreek Hill, Humphreys, Godwin, and Boyd. It would be Hill and Humphreys for me.
Yeah, Hill and Humphreys. I like Boyd though. I think Boyd's gonna go for Yeah, I like Hill and Humphreys, but Boyd isn't far behind.
Alrighty, and on to this next game, Bobby. We have answered all the questions. We could get back on to the slate here. Indianapolis headed to Houston to take on the Texans. This game has a 49.5 over-under. The Texans have a 26.75 implied team total. Colts have a 22.75 implied team total here. As I alluded to when we were answering questions, my quarterback is coming from this game here. and that is Deshaun Watson at 5,900. I just think this is a smash spot for him. I think, we saw what he's capable of doing, against this defense earlier in the season. We saw it. This Colts. All right, so the Colts defense is not like one that you want to pick on at all times, but they've been a little bit better against the run than they have against the pass. Number one, and then number two is they can allow rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks. We've seen them, do it at a pretty decent clip this season when compared to the rest of the defenses in the league. And we know Watson is capable of running. I think it's a great price tag at 5,900. I think there's a huge ceiling as well as a strong floor here. Talk to me about Watson if you have any interest in him and the rest of this game.
Well, we just heard that Kute was out, so definitely brings up my interest in Hopkins. And now I think Watson is definitely in play just because of the stack and how it correlates. Like I hadn't really considered Watson until like Emil threw out the injury report list and hearing that Kute is out, how the Colts kind of funnel to the pass, like Watson's going to have no ownership. The thing is, I love A-Rod, and A-Rod's at 6K, Watson's at 5,900, but I don't know. I think I like Watson a little bit more now. That might just be in the moment.
Okay, so and I agree with you. I love Aaron Rodgers this weekend, but this is the thing. Like rostering Hopkins and Watson is going to save you salary, and I also think it's going to reduce the ownership in tournaments where Rodgers and Adams, that's going to be the stack. Everyone's going to pretty much be on. Is going to be much more popular. And I think that Watson and Hopkins have the same upside and the same, ceiling here this week. So kind of why I'm doing it. I think, and I agree, I thought Hopkins was a strong option with Kute in or out. Makes him even better now. So I think this duo is very strong. In fact, it's my favorite stack on the weekend for tournaments for sure here. Love them both. I'm pretty much going to be a staple of my tournament lineups this week. And, on the other side, it looks like Hilton's going to play. I don't mind running it back with Hilton because it isn't the best matchup for him, but we know that he's so capable of, burning any defender because of his speed. And Luck likes to throw it downfield to him. And the volume has also been there. So don't mind that. Andrew Luck is interesting to me in tournaments, but I much rather play Watson at the same price tag here. And then Ebron, I really don't know what to do with him this week. The volume's there or whatnot. And the opportunity is going to be there. But the thing is just that I'm either paying up all the way up and going to Kelsey, or I'm sticking to cheaper options at the tight end position this week. So he's basically at a price tag that makes it very difficult for me to strongly consider him here. Any thoughts on the Colts offense here, Bob?
I think the Colts side is extremely sneaky, especially for tournaments. Ebron and T.Y. are going to see a ton of volume, and then you can run it back with a guy like Hopkins. Nymean Himes, or whatever his name is, he's seen 10 targets last week. If you're thinking about I wouldn't play Mac. I'd probably play Hines in a stack like that and then run it back with Hopkins, or just Ebron, T.Y., and Luck and run it back with Hopkins if you want to go that route. I don't hate – this is a pretty good game, guys. Like, I like both sides of this game. Ebron and T.Y. are going to see such a market share in this offense. T.Y.'s matchup isn't great. Ebron's matchup is phenomenal. Like, it's a very good matchup. I like this game.
Yeah, and that's my thing, man. Like, I agree. Ebron is in a smash spot. My concern is just how I fit him in. Because for 1,000 more, and I know it's every dollar counts this weekend, but I think it's for 1,000 more you get Kelsey, man, and I kind of feel like you can find that extra cash to get Kelsey in your lineups. But I do agree. I think this is a good game stack. I think this is a much more interesting game than the Bucks and New Orleans game. I think this could produce much more fantasy goodness here because I think you can pretty much you could pinpoint out where the production is going to be here. I don't think there are going to be much surprises. I think it's Hopkins, and Watson, and then Miller has been a volume back. No Foreman this week only means that Blue will continue his role, and Miller's going to continue his role as the lead back here. And on the other side, like you pointed out, it's Ibrahim Hilton and no one else. They're not going to be able to run the ball against Texans, I think. And they're going to have to be passing because this is a game where they'll probably be chasing points according to Vegas here. So very interesting tournament game here for me. I think this is one you definitely want to look into, guys. Any final thoughts here, Bobby, before we move on to the next game?
No, we pretty much covered it. That's a good game, guys.
Carolina headed to Cleveland to take on the Browns here. 47.5 over under. It's jumped up a point since it opened. Carolina has a 24.25 implied team total. Browns have a 23.25 implied team total. Bobby, you alluded to Mayfield being someone you are very keen on this week, as am I. Give me your thoughts here on him and the rest of this game.
I love him, but I think we have Watson, we have Luck, and we have Rodgers all in that price tier as well. So it's kind of a difficult situation. But the thing with Mayfield is he burns. He just had such a terrible game last week. You can kind of leverage recency bias. But do we have an ownership clip on him? I feel like ownership's going to be so spread out. It might not even matter to go that route. I like stacking him with Callaway. I think last week I was on Landry pretty heavy. I think this week I'd jump off Landry and go to Callaway. Callaway's definitely seen an uptick in production. He seems like the guy that Mayfield's kind of clicked with the most, and he gets James Bradbury, and we want to attack James Bradbury. So, yeah, that would be my stack. I also think that Nick Chubb is in play. Not going to be very highly owned, going to see a ton of usage. I kind of like the Cleveland side, so I think it plays more in favor to Nick Chubb. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. For the Cleveland side and Carolina, McCaffrey, I think his price tag has gotten to a point where in tournaments, I don't know if it's really worth it. Just because he's pretty much, if he goes for 36, that isn't even that's just making value at this point. At that price tag, I just don't think it's worth it in tournaments. I definitely see the reason you'd go there in cash games. And then I like Curtis Samuel. I think he's a great play. Denzel Ward's going to be on Funchess. DJ Moore might go overlooked. He's going to be in the slot, has a good matchup. But I think Samuel, I've always thought Samuel has the most potential as a receiver on this team to kind of be the guy. And he's also utilized in the running game sometimes. And I don't know. I'm not really high on Cam, though. So I don't know how much Samuel I'd have. I think Cam's dealing with the bum shoulder. It kind of makes you want to play McCaffrey more in cash. You can hop in and give your thoughts. That's pretty much all I got.
I'm with you, man. I'm not keen on Cam this week, man. I respect this Brown, and I've said this all season long. The Browns against the pass are pretty good, man. They're not a pushover team like we're used to attacking. They're much more susceptible against the run, which it makes McCaffrey very interesting. But like you alluded to, man, that price is getting up there, and we're going to really need a ceiling game out of him here in order to make sense of rostering him in tournaments. I'm not going to talk anyone off of him. I think he is still an elite play by a good chunk here. He's an elite play. We know what he's capable of doing. But I'd rather take the discounts here and go with Barkley. I know it's only a couple hundred, but I'd rather take that discount. I do think McCaffrey is going to be the most popular running back this weekend. And rightfully so. In cash games, staple of my cash game lineups for sure. On the other side, man, Mayfield is very, very interesting to me. This offense has looked better with the new coaching staff. He looks more comfortable. It looks like he's just getting better each week. And this is a good matchup. This is really a good matchup. The Panthers are pretty good against the run, limiting the damage on the ground. But when it comes to through the air, they're a little bit more susceptible to that. They rank 28th in DVOA against the pass, whereas 8th in DVOA against the run. So it just goes to show you they funnel to the pass here. I agree with you. I think Antonio Callaway is super interesting. When you look at his production over the last 5 weeks, at least 5 targets in all but one of those games. Has a couple touchdowns in that span. So someone that you definitely want to consider at 3,900. I only a tournament play for me only, but do think that he's going to go completely overlooked here in a good game environment. Really good game environment here for Callaway. You mentioned Landry, and I think you're spot on. We saw it last week. The volume back up to 9 targets, caught 6 of those for 103 yards. This is a situation though where I probably won't go back to the wall here. Much rather Callaway this week, especially in tournaments, and considering the price tag here for him. So, David Njoku, man, so talented. The volume's been there, but he's been such a letdown. Really tough to go there for me this week. It is also a good matchup for him. So, if you're trying to stack Maple, then you don't want to go Landry. You don't feel comfortable with someone like Njoku, someone you might want to consider. This is a Panthers defense that has allowed 8 touchdowns to opposing tight ends, which is tied for second most here. And they have allowed 66 receptions, which is top 10 as far as allowed by a defense this season. So definitely a good spot for Njoku. Just very volatile play here. That's the only thing that concerns me about him. And then on the Panther side, I'm with you, man. It's McCaffrey or nothing for me. I don't have interest in Cam Newton. We always talk about he has a high floor. Last week he threw 4 interceptions. Yeah, he still managed to score 22 DraftKings points. Just kind of shows you what kind of quarterback he is. But just don't like the situation for him at all, man. I'm 100% on board with you when it comes to Cam Newton here. So any final thoughts on this game before we move on to this next one?
Get up in the next one.
Atlanta at Green Bay taking on the Packers. You already alluded to Rodgers being one of your favorite quarterbacks. I also think he is an elite option this week. 6K is too cheap considering the matchup, and it's just too enticing for me here. So look, the Falcons are a defense that I think are very susceptible against the pass here. So I think Rodgers can easily pick them apart. We know how good of a quarterback Rodgers is. New coaching staff here. So kind of interesting to see how they approach this game. The over-under here, 50. It's a 50-point over-under. It's jumped up 2.5 points since it opened. The Packers, 26.75 implied team total. The Falcons, 23.25 implied team total. Something interesting here, though. Packers opened up at 6-point favorites. They're only 3.5-point favorites now. It looks like there's some nice money here for the Falcons covering the spread. Give me your thoughts on this game and maybe what that represents, if you have any, opinion on what that might mean here for the Falcons offense.
Yeah. So for the Falcons, I don't know. Let me just talk about the Green Bay Packers first. Just the Packers in general. Like Rodgers, the narrative here with McCarthy being fired is they've publicly gone out and said they wanted a new coach. Everyone knows about the friction between Rodgers and McCarthy. Joe Philbin is not going to have much say in the play calling, and they want to. And a lot of news out of Packers camp is going to play sped up. I think with Rodgers has said in the past that he wants to see Aaron Jones be a full-time running back. I love Aaron Jones this week. Probably going to be in a lot of my lineups, probably every single one of my lineups in tournaments, and I'm contemplating using him in cash. I also like Randall Cobb a ton. I just think that if they're going to play sped up, he's going to be in the slot for tournaments. I think he's a great pivot off some of these value guys like Shepard, I don't know. There's a bunch of guys, Godwin, Humphreys. I think Cobb is really interesting for tournaments. And he has familiarity with Rodgers and the plays that Rodgers is probably going to be most comfortable with. He's the most tenured guy in that offense. So I feel like we can't really overlook that in this situation. Devontae Adams is a cash game lock for me at this time. I just love the Packers side. And you were talking about the Falcons. You said the money moved up. It helps the Falcons, you were trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, their implied team total jumped up. I think it's what 2.5 points here. Yeah, it jumped up by 2.5 points. That moved up the total in this game as well. I don't know. Look, it's tough because Matt Ryan is someone that I think it's interesting because of the game environment here, of the matchup. Not saying the Packers are a pushover defense here, but they're 20th in DVOA against the pass, so it's not like they're like a stout pass defense here. I think they're going to be chasing points, and I know Matt Ryan has had some struggles in recent games. He struggled against Baltimore here in last week. That was to be expected. We talked about that. Even though they were at home, it is a tough Baltimore Ravens defense. Then he struggled in week 11, against the Cowboys. We saw the Cowboys do an excellent job at containing the New Orleans Saints offense, which is far superior than this Falcons one. So it was a tough matchup. So it's not like he's just like being like a bad quarterback. It's just he's struggled in some difficult situations, and I don't think this is one. And I think people are overlooking how good Matt Ryan has been throughout the rest of the season. And if he's going to be chasing points, and if he's going to have to sling it here, they don't have a running game. They have some talented pass catchers here. I just really think he makes for an interesting tournament play. Again, I'm building my lineup to Watson, but I've really considered, going Matt Ryan here because no one's going to play him. I think there's 30-plus fantasy point upside. I think this is a good game environment. So he's just interesting to me. That's all, And then I noticed that line movement this morning, and it's something that, like I mentioned, it's just I don't know, man. Everything is kind of pointing in that direction for him to have a pretty good game. I could be wrong here, but I do definitely think he's one of the more interesting tournament plays on the slate because of the ownership and the entire game environment here. So just food for thought. Right now I don't have him in any of my tournament lineups, but that could change from here to lock in the next hour or so. Just food for thought there, guys. Someone that I think is pretty interesting here. And then Julio Jones, we know that he's going to get the targets. We know he's going to get the volume. It looks like he's going to get Tony Brown, who grades up above average on Pro Football Focus here, making it a pretty tough matchup. But Jones is far superior than he is, so I think he'd be able to get it done here. And then Calvin really does have a tough matchup here against Jair Alexander. So if you are going to go Matt Ryan, I would just not get cute and just go with Julio Jones because for sure that's where the targets are going to go. And I agree with you on the Green Bay side, man. I mean, I think you said it perfectly. Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, they have to be considered the top stack in a funnel. In a vacuum here. And even at the price for Rodgers, I mean, to me, that's too cheap for him this week. So I like them quite a bit here as one of the top stacks on the slate. Any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I think the line movement. I know you like. You think it helps Matt Ryan. I think it helped guys like Ridley. Just ancillary pieces. I know Matt Ryan's correlated with Ridley. But I think Ridley's probably more involved in my player pool. Guys like Julio. When Julio's chalky in this situation, I kind of tend to stay away. So I might look to a guy like Ridley or Ito Smith or Tevin Coleman or something like that in deep GBPs. I don't think I'm going to make a Falcons stack if in multi-entry this week, and that might be a bad idea, but I don't know. I'm just going to take the ancillary pieces.
Yeah, and that might be maybe the best way to approach it, considering some of the quarterbacks in this price range. But I did want to point that out because to me he is interesting this week. All right, man, on to the next game. Denver at San Francisco taking on the 49ers here. 45 over-under. The Broncos are 3-point favorites on the road. 24.25 implied team total for them. 21.25 implied team total for the Niners. Jeff Wilson will get the start here in this game. 3,800. Expected to be one of the more popular running backs on the slate. The reason why I'm okay with fading someone like Samuels is because Jeff Wilson is on the slate. We saw his ability to catch passes out of the backfield last week, catching 8 of his 9 targets for 73 yards. Also ran the ball 15 times, 23 touches. I think we're going to see that type of production for him again as far as the usage is concerned. I think it's pretty much a lock with Matt Breida out. And when I'm getting that kind of usage at this price tag, it's just very tough for me to not roster someone like Wilson here. Whereas with Samuels, although he's expected to get the bulk of the carries, I don't know if I can really project him for 20-plus touches here like I can Wilson, because at the end of the day, Wilson is a good pass catcher, as we saw last week. And this is a Kyle Shanahan offense that really does help these kind of backs that can catch passes out of the backfield. So I like Wilson a ton at 3,800. Someone that I feel is going to be popular, but I'm okay to eat some of this chalk in tournaments this weekend. And then aside from him, though, on the 49ers, I have nothing. Kittle's always in play, but I'm not going to pay out for him this week. And then on the other side, without Emmanuel Sanders, it looks like Courtland Sutton's going to step into the number 1 wide receiver role here. It's 4,500. I liked him a little bit more early in the week, but then I started reading some things and kind of looking into the numbers, and it just doesn't appear that he's on the same page as Keenum. It doesn't look like they have any good chemistry. And while he's probably going to see, anywhere between 7 and 10 targets pretty easily here, we don't know how many of those he's going to come down with. It's similar to like Zay Jones, where you're going to get either a really big game or pretty much a crappy game here. So out of Sutton, and I just think there's so much value. You mentioned Cobb, which I think is someone that's going to go completely overlooked. Godwin and Humphreys in that same price range to me are just much better. They offer the same ceiling and have much safer floors here. Sterling Shepard, even now that that opened up, to me is a better play than Sutton. I do like Sutton. I do like his upside. I do like his talent. I just want to see a little bit more out of him before I feel comfortable rostering him. On this particular slate, when you have so many other options, Fitzgerald is someone else in that price range that I like a ton this week. So I just don't think it's necessary to go to Sutton this week, even though it is a good matchup for him and he is expected to see an increased role here. That's it for me for this game. I have really nothing else. Those would be the 2 guys I'm considering, and I'm not really rostering Sutton. So it's pretty much Jeff Wilson and nothing else for me here. Any thoughts for you on this game?
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, I think, is like cash game lock in terms of like the running back position. I also think that Matt Lacoste, I have the same feelings with you do towards Sutton. Matt Lacoste last week only seen 1 target, but with Huerman out, his snap percentage skyrocketed. And I just don't think that Keenum loves to throw to the middle of the field, so I don't think that'll be consistent. I think that a lot of people will look to Sutton, and I think the guy you want is Lacoste at 2,700. That's why he's someone that I'm kind of going to be overweight on in terms of like my player pool. I know everyone loves Kelsey, makes a ton of sense, but like I said, I like Tyreek, and I just like the value for Lacoste at that price tag. Just because of where Keenum likes to throw the ball. He likes to hit the middle of the field. You're taking away Sanders. Sanders had such a huge market share in this offense. So I think that if you're running Wilson, you can run it back with a guy like Lacoste. Maybe sneaky in tournaments for some people.
And I love that call, actually. And my bad, because I completely forgot that he was on this team right now, and he is actually no. Let me explain. He is in all my tournament lineups right now. Like I'm going with Lacoste in all my tournament lineups.
Yeah, me too. So we'll ride and die together, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, he didn't get anything. He didn't get anything going last week, but he was on the field 80% of the time. No Sanders this week. That's a lot of targets to go around. And like you alluded to, Keenum likes in the middle of likes to go to the middle of the field here, and I think Lacoste is going to be, someone that benefits from that. And then when you look at how he burned, because I think he was not popular, but there was a lot of sharper players on him last week, and he burned some people last week. So I think that really helps this week, and I like taking opportunities like that where someone who was kind of touted a little bit goes, pretty much lays a dud. And then the following week, nobody's going to be on him. All right, still the same situation, still a good matchup, still everything's good. It was just, you know what, it just didn't pan out last week. Kind of like the Ware situation that we talked about earlier. The only difference is that Ware doesn't have as good of a matchup this week as we would like. But, you know, again, Lacoste is someone that to me makes a lot of sense here. 49ers, you know, they haven't been a pushover defense against tight ends, but they have allowed 5 touchdowns to the position here. Middle of the pack there. So definitely someone to consider here, especially if you're not paying up. And that's what I've been saying all show. If I'm not paying up for guys like Kelsey, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go pretty low here, and he's 2,700 over at DraftKings, and just lets you do so much with the rest of your lineup. So yeah, give me all the Lacoste in tournaments if you're not paying up for someone like Travis Kelsey this week. Great call there, Bobby. And like you mentioned, we will ride or die together with this guy this weekend, man. Next game on the board is the Bengals at Los Angeles taking on the Chargers here, a 48 over-under. Chargers have a 32 implied team total. They're 15-point favorites. Bengals have a 16 implied team total. I really want to get exposure to this offense. I really want to get exposure to this game. I just don't know how to do it. Look, I love Keenan Allen this week. I really, really do. To me, when you look at this price tag, I just feel like it's way too cheap for him. This is a really, really good matchup for Keenan Allen here. He's getting Darqueze Dennard, who grades out well below average on Pro Football Focus, a 32% advantage rating for Allen. My biggest concern is, and we saw him have 19 targets last week. I don't think he's going to see that many targets this week, but I do think anywhere between 8 and 12 targets is very, very reasonable for him. He's now scored a touchdown in 4 consecutive games, has 20 or more DraftKings points in the last 3 games here. I just think like he's been so good and so efficient, so productive that it's tough to get away from him. To me, he's one of the top receivers on the board. I just really am concerned about the blowout concern here, because the Bengals are awful, number one. They're traveling across the country to the West Coast, which we typically know that can have an effect on the team. And when you have a bad team traveling across the country, it just doesn't bode well for me. So I am very concerned here for this game as far as the blowout potential is concerned. So Austin Eckler, we talked about him a little bit already. I think he's in a great spot here. That $6,200 price tag is a little steep for me. The guy I have a ton of interest in, though, man, is Justin Jackson. Like, I feel like he makes such a great pivot play off of Wilson and Samuels at that same price tag that, it just – the upsides there. The Bengals have been atrocious against the run. In very limited role, Jackson has been very efficient, averaging at least 7.9 yards per carry in the last 2 games. The touches haven't been there, but we also saw him get 1 target last week, caught that for 19 yards. So this kid can play football. And this is a very good matchup. And if this game does get out of control, as is expected by Vegas, because the Chargers, I believe, opened up at 14-point favorites, and now they're 15-point favorites. So money is on the Chargers here. They're playing good football. If this game does get out of control, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jackson have a big role here, especially towards the end of the game, and just get a lot of garbage time touches. And then when you think about Eckler, I don't think they're going to run him 15 to 17 times. Yeah, he's going to be involved in the passing game, but I don't see him getting more than 10 to 12 rush attempts here. So Jackson's going to get the rest of those here. I really, really like him in tournaments. I typically don't like the unknown when it comes to running backs, but this is just one of those things where Jackson is so appealing to me, and that team total, man, it's very enticing. I like Jackson a lot, man. Give me your thoughts on this game. And then for the Bengals, I have nothing, man. For the Bengals, I have nothing. But go ahead, give me your thoughts on this game. Give me your thoughts on both sides, because I know you like Boyd here.
Yeah, I like Boyd a ton with AJ Green out for the price tag. I think this game's kind of sneaky just from a game theory aspect, like recency bias. A lot of people don't want to play Eckler. They've seen what Justin Jackson did on Monday Night Football. I think, like you said, Justin Jackson makes for a great pivot of the Wilson and Samuel chalk. Yeah, that's a fine way to go. I actually like Eckler. You say you only think he'll get 10 to 15 touches?
No, rush attempts, not touches. Rush attempts.
Rush attempts. Well, the Cincinnati defense is pretty bad. He's going to catch a bunch of passes. No one's going to own him either. I just think that I'd rather just take Eckler at like his low ownership. He's going to be the starter, unless they say otherwise. Unless they say he's not going to start. Like I really like Eckler in this spot. Feel like he can make value. I think a lot of people are going to look to like a guy like Keenan Allen in cash games, and I just think the price tag's great, but the game script could go away from him, so he's not someone I'm going to go to. That's pretty much it. I think Eckler's a pretty like sharp way to go against the field, especially how he busted the other night. So.
Yeah, I like Eckler, man. I wish he was 5,900. I know it sounds silly. We've had this conversation before where there was a guy that's, and we'll talk about it when we get to the Dallas game, but guy at 6,600, if he was 6,200, it'd be so much more appealing. Kind of how I feel about Eckler, man. If he was 5,900, 5,800, I feel so much better about him, especially this week where we're really trying to save every dollar because there's so many high-priced guys in good spots. And then there's so many good value plays as well. So it's one of those situations where every dollar matters here. So I agree. I think Eckler can have a big game without a doubt. And to me, he's always been someone I liked. Even in season-long formats, I pretty much have all the Eckler in my rosters because he's someone that I feel is a difference maker. But when it comes to DFS this week, man, just that price it's tough to swallow this week for me. I don't know I can do it, but I do think he's in a good spot to have a big game here, man. Anything for you aside from Boyd? I know you have interest in Boyd, but anything for you in the Bengals side?
In the Bengals side, just Boyd, but it's just because they have favorable game script. I think Mixon's interesting at 6,400 if you're looking for – he's another one of those middling running backs that no one's going to own, and I think that for tournaments he should definitely make your player pool.
Yeah. And then the Chargers defense to me is in an elite spot. I'm just not paying up for them this week. So I'm sticking down to the lower defense as far as the salary is concerned this week. So, but they are in an elite spot. And if you like to pay up for defense, the Chargers would be the way to go here. All right. So we got some questions to get to here, and then we'll continue breaking down the last three games that we have. Is the weather in Tampa bad enough to take out Loads or anyone else? So it's going to be bad, but I'm not going to move away off of a kicker or anyone off in this game unless you have a better option, really. But I'm going to this game should produce some quality fantasy production here. So I'm not going to move away from this game just because of the rain here. Any takes there, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. Stuttered there.
Yeah, it's cool, man. PPR league trying to decide between Evan Ingram, Dan Arnold, and Ian Thomas. Evan Ingram to me is pretty clear there of that group. And I think by a good chunk there. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like Evan Ingram.
Who was PPR need one run? It was Dan Arnold and Ian Thomas. Ian Thomas, the tight end for Ingram. PPR need one running back and one flex. Ware, Samuels, Edwards, and Shepard. So I'm assuming this is Samuels from Pittsburgh, and this is definitely a season-long league, I'm assuming as well. So I would go Ware and Samuels.
Yeah, Ware and Samuels.
All right. Doug Martin, Curtis Samuel, Trey Burton, or Jordan Howard in a standard league need one. And this is brutal. I would go with Jordan Howard, and I'm not even happy about that.
Yeah, I can't read these questions. That's why I'm like trying to figure out where you.
No, it's cool. All right, so Doug Martin, Curtis Samuel, Trey Burton, or Jordan Howard in a standard league.
Curtis Samuel. Oh, standard Trey Burton.
Yeah, for me, it was between him and Howard. I ultimately went with the guy who I could at least get some more touches from. But yeah, those would be the two guys I lean on, guys. Galladay or Humphreys in a non-PPR. Galladay for me.
Galladay or Humphreys non-PPR?
In a non-PPR,
yeah, Galladay.
I love Humphreys this week, guys, but feel much better about him in PPR. Martin or Montgomery? Montgomery. I think we had that same question earlier, and we both answered Montgomery. Need a flex in half PPR. Sony Michel, Hilton, Samuels, or Jeff Wilson? Give me Michel here.
Michel, Jeff Wilson, Samuel. It's half point PPR.
Yeah, or Hilton.
I like Jeff Wilson.
Okay. Saints or Giants defense? Give me the Saints.
Saints or Giants D? Yeah, I like the Saints.
Roethlisberger or Mahomes today? I didn't want to get that question. I knew I wanted to go the entire show without getting that question. Give me Mahomes, man. Give me Mahomes. It's a tougher matchup, but that he's just been so good. This I'm assuming is for your playoffs, not DFS, but give me Mahomes.
Yeah, I'll take Mahomes.
That one's very close, though. Is this Denver defense still a top option with Chris Harris on IR? Look, they're playing the 49ers. If you're looking for a defense to stream or whatnot, I still think the Broncos are a viable option. Obviously, their secondary is not as elite without Chris Harris, but this is also a pretty good matchup for them here. So that's it. That's as far as the questions are concerned, and we can move on to the next game. Philly at Dallas. This is, to me, one of those games where, I want to have more interest, but I don't. It has a 45.5 over-under. It's jumped up 2.5 points, 24.5 implied team total for the Cowboys, 21 implied team total for the Eagles. So on the data side, it's all the Ezekiel Elliott I can roster. Just really, the usage is through the roof. A lot of people are going to be playing McCaffrey, and I think for me, Elliott is the must play this week. I like them both quite a bit, but I'm going to go with Elliott. Yes, the Eagles have been better against the run than the Browns have, but they do struggle a little bit against pass catching backs. And we have seen, the opportunity that Elliott has here in the passing game. The usage is just through the roof. And we saw what he's able to do even against a good run defense. He lit up this Eagles front seven in week 10 for 151 rushing yards on 19 carries. And you look at his, I'm saying, his involvement in the passing game. These are the targets, guys, in the last several weeks: 6, 6, 8, 7, 5, 6. Definitely a big part of what they're doing here in the passing game, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. So I think he's probably, my top play in this game by a good amount. But I also like Amari Cooper. I think this is a good matchup. The price, this is what I was alluding to before. If he was 6,200, this would be a no-brainer for me. At 6,600, I like him. I think he's a very good play. But it's just like he's at that price range now where it makes a difference for me here, a couple hundred. Still like him, though. Still think it's a good one-on-one matchup here for Cooper. This secondary for the Eagles is dinged up. I don't have anything else for Dallas. And you know what? The Eagles, this offense has just been, bad. Aside from Zach Ertz, this offense just has been pretty bad, over the last couple of weeks. And I'm not going to pay up for Ertz at 6,400 when I can just get Kelsey at $300 more. So this is a game where, like I said, I feel like I should have a little bit more interest, but it's Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and I'm okay with playing the Dallas Cowboys defense here at 2,600. I really think they're a really good pass rush. I think they're going to be able to put pressure here on Wentz. And this is just a really good unit. They've been playing really good football, and I think they're underpriced considering their upside here, and that's the Dallas Cowboys defense. So that's it for me in this game, Bobby. So I'll let you take the floor now and give your thoughts here for the Eagles-Cowboys game.
Yeah, for Eagles-Cowboys, I think I like Zeke, like Ertz a ton. Like correlating Zeke with the Cowboys defense. That's pretty much in line with like my thought process and where I want to go in that game. There's not much more I like. Cooper's at a good price. Hate to play Cooper. Don't love like Tate and those weapons. The guys I just like are Ertz and Zeke. And Cowboys D, that would be the guys that I'd be keying in on.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same boat here. Nothing else really in this game that stands out for neither of us, guys. On to this next game, Detroit at Arizona. This game has a 40.5 over-under. The Lions are 2.5-point favorites on the road, 21.5 implied team total, 19 implied team total for the Cardinals. Bobby, you're moving around. You're getting ready. You're getting focused here for this game. Give me your thoughts here because you and I spoke a little bit about LeGarrette Blount earlier in this week at 3,900 being an interesting pivot play from Wilson and Samuels. Are you still in that same mentality? Because it's something that I've been back and forth with pretty much all week because this is a really good matchup for him. We know Kerryon Johnson's not going to play. He's had at least 16 carries in each of the last two games with Johnson out here. He blew up against the Bears, 2 touchdowns, 23 fantasy points, but back to normal last week, averaging 3.8 yards per carry, 16 carries. We know that his involvement in the passing game is really not that great, not significant at all, actually. Not a pass-catching back here, but to me, it's just an interesting spot here because the Cardinals have struggled so much against the running back position this season. When you look at the per game basis, well over 100 rushing yards per game. We saw them give up 168 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns to the Chargers a couple weeks ago. I just feel like this is a situation where Blount is going to go unowned because all the attention is going to be on the other running backs. And he's someone that can easily have a 2-touchdown game and just get you ahead of the field by a good distance if it pans out. Give me your thoughts here on Blount. Give me your thoughts on the rest of this game because for me, he's really the only player in Detroit that I like, and I do like Fitzgerald. But I'll let you talk about Fitzgerald because I know you have interest in him as well.
Yeah, Blount's interesting. I thought he was the guy who stood out as a fade right off the bat off Wilson and Samuels. Theo Riddick also has seen a little bit more increase in terms of like being utilized in the run game, so that kind of scares me. I like David Johnson a ton in this game. I think that he's in a good spot. I think he'll definitely get first crack at the goal line this week with what Chase Edmonds did last week. He's definitely said to like the coaches, like, you got to give me that first shot at goal line. So I think he's going to go own. I think he's in a good spot. My issue is Detroit's offense is very slow in pace, and it's not something you really want to roster again, like guys like within their game environment because of how slow that they play. But yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much my thoughts on this game. Like I like Blount as a pivot if you're playing a lot of lineups and you want to go there. Riddick's in play as well, and David Johnson, if you're playing a lot of lineups, should be another guy that you consider. In terms of Fitzgerald, like, yeah, with all these guys out, Fitzgerald makes for a really good play. He's going to see Quandre Diggs or whoever's in the slot for Detroit. That's usually a guy that we kind of attack. With Christian Kirk out, should free up more passes his way. And a guy like Chad Williams for deep GPPs is another play that's interesting. I just don't want to attack this game too much, but I'm just seeing where the usage is going to go. That's pretty much all I got. I don't really like Galladay. I wouldn't play him.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is a game you don't want to attack too much, but Fitzgerald is pretty much going to see a decent amount of targets here. And then I don't know, man. It's such a good matchup for Blunt that it makes this like an interesting situation. And I think the game script is going to favor him. So he's not going to have ownership, man. That's really what intrigues me. And he's someone that can certainly have multiple touchdowns here. And the Cardinals have just been so bad against the run. So, man, I don't know. It's to me, it's an interesting pivot in tournaments this week. That's kind of what I'm having the trouble with this week, where to go for that value at running back. But aside from that, I'm with you, man. There's not a game I have too much interest in at all here. So this last and final game, man, lots of things to consider here. The Pittsburgh heading to Oakland to take on the Raiders. This game has a 51 over/under. Pittsburgh has a 30.75 implied team total. Oakland has a 20.25 implied team total here. 10.5-point favorites are the Steelers. As we've been talking about this entire show, James Conner's not playing this week, which pretty much puts Jalen Samuels in the starting role here. He's expected to get the bulk of the carries. It was reported by, I believe it was Ian Rappaport this morning. He's 3,700. The Raiders are one of the worst run defenses in the league by a good amount here. They've allowed the most rushing yards to the position here. Pretty much a smash spot for a running back here. But the big concern for me is, while it's reported that he's going to see the majority of the carries, I'm having trouble seeing him, run the ball 15 to 17 times here. I think this is a game where they can actually elude to the passing game because it is also a good matchup here for Big Ben. Right now, I'm fading Samuels. I think I'm going to stick to that in tournaments because I do think he's going to be among one of the most popular players on the slate. The person I really, really like here, Bobby, is Juju Smith-Schuster, man. He is just in a smash spot. According to Pro Football Focus, he's going to get Darryl Worley. I also mentioned earlier that I believe he's going to see Nick Nelson, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of the other guy that he can draw some coverage from. Because like I said, Nick Nelson does line up in the slot 98% of the time, where Smith-Schuster lines up 68% of the time. So Nick Nelson grades out as the worst corner on the slate. So if Juju Smith-Schuster is going to see Nelson here a good amount of the time, I really love him in tournaments. I don't know how popular he's going to be. I don't think he's going to get that much ownership. And I just think he makes for such a strong leverage play because of all the ownership in Samuels, that if it does turn out that the Steelers decide to pass more than they run, I think Juju Smith-Schuster can just smash here. And we've seen that 40-point fantasy upside that he offers. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that this weekend, man. So I really, really like Juju Smith-Schuster this week. The only trouble I'm having with him is how to fit him in, because I'm prioritizing the running backs this week. Give me your thoughts here on this game, on this offense, and if you have anything for the Raiders, feel free to toss it in there.
Yeah, I'd much rather play. I'd much rather play the Oakland side in tournaments than the Pittsburgh side. I think Samuels is fine for tournaments. I just think I'd rather play a guy like Tyreek than Juju. I think Derek Carr at 5K is in a pretty interesting position. I know people really don't want to go there, but I know in tournaments, deep GPPs is a stack. You could stack him with a guy like Marcel Aitman, who's seen a bunch of targets, had a long touchdown taken away last week. Maybe him, Aitman, Richard, something like that, or just Carr and Aitman, or even Nelson, throw Nelson in there, and then run it back with a guy like Samuels, and then take ancillary pieces from other games. Would be kind of where I'm going. I don't like Big Ben on the road. I know it's a 4 o'clock start, not a 1 o'clock start. I know that Samuels is a pass-catching running back, so it might make it so Ben throws more in this game. I just think there's other QBs in that range I'd rather roster than Ben. And I think that a lot of people around this industry have the same Pittsburgh take, and I'm just not really on it as much as everyone else.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting spot here, man, because they have such a high implied team total that you definitely want exposure. And I really think that since everyone's going to be going Samuels, leveraging on this offense, it's a strong approach in tournaments, in my opinion here. From the Oakland side, I don't mind Jared Cook. But again, I've been alluded to. I'll show it's either I pay up for Kelsey or I go down. And right now I have Lacoste, but I do think Cook is interesting. He's been playing really well. The lack of pass catchers here is going to provide opportunities for him. So definitely a strong matchup as well, because the Steelers do struggle against tight ends. That's it, guys. So we broke down the 13 games on the main slate. We gave you the inactives and actives. Let me check here before we get going if we have any more questions. Eckler or Ingram in standard. I believe we answered this already, but being that it's standard, I'm going to go with Ingram over Eckler. Bobby, yourself?
Ingram. And being that it's standard, Ingram, we already answered that.
I like both running backs a lot, guys. I mean, I think they're both strong options this week. This was a PPR. It'd be a no-brainer for me to go Eckler. But being that Eckler is so dependent on his pass-catching skills, I think Ingram just gives you a better shot here and a good game environment as well for him, as well as a good matchup. All right, one last question here, and it's 2 flex spots, half-point PPR. Peterson, Blunt, Jeff Wilson, Riddick, Barber, Zay Jones, Curtis Samuel here. I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson, and, man, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson and I guess Peterson here. Yeah,
Jeff Wilson, and you like Peterson. I think Peterson's in a great matchup. I'm going to go Riddick. He said Riddick, you're right?
Riddick was also an option there.
Is it PPR?
Yeah. Half-point PPR. That's why I didn't go Riddick. If it was a full-point PPR, I'd feel much better about it.
Yeah, I think Peterson's pretty interesting. I think just with how the Giants have played defensively. Yeah, he's a pretty good player. Yeah, I might lean Peterson.
All right, guys, that's it for us this weekend. Bobby, any final thoughts on this slate? Any final thoughts on your approach this weekend? And then if you want to give those, go ahead and give everyone where they can follow you on social media.
No, good luck, guys. Pretty interesting week. Going to be a fun tournament week. Wish you all the best in tournaments and your cash games. Find me at Bobby Gomes DFS on Twitter and IG.
All right, guys, good luck to everyone this weekend. We'll be back next week at the same time, 11 a.m. sharp. Make sure you tune in on Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll be breaking down the Thursday night slate and then going game by game, breaking down the entire slate, main slate here at footballdiehards.com. If you haven't already done so, check me out on Twitter at Armando_Marcel. I'm giving away a free subscription to footballdiehards.com. I'll be announcing a winner at some point next week. So make sure, if you haven't already done so, it's pinned on my Twitter account there, and to tell you exactly what you need to do, guys. Good luck to everyone this weekend. We'll be back next week. See you later.